Plato's theory of forms, or ideas. Summary. To make completely valid knowledge possible, it was essential that there be some such universal realities, not subject to change and decay, and that these should be apprehended by human intelligence. Since some such realities were necessary, Plato was satisfied to assert that there existed such a reality corresponding to what we are more apt to call every abstract concept. These forms are the objective reality to which the concepts correspond, and they exist whether we know them or not. In this intelligible world, there is no place for progress or evolution. The pattern is the same, though the copy, the world of sense, may reflect it more or less closely at different times. The forms are spaceless and immaterial, and they are independent of particulars. Considered as truth, the forms are the objective realities that general terms connote. Since the forms make for harmony, they are beautiful and are the objects of our longing to see, to know, and to understand beauty, and by means of this understanding to create further beauty. The theory asks us to believe in eternal, unchanging, universal absolutes, independent of the world of phenomena, the realm of becoming. Belief, for example, in absolute beauty, absolute justice, absolute goodness, from which whatever we call beautiful, just, or good derives any reality it may have. The short version: the forms are immutable, timeless, one over many, intellectually apprehensible, capable of precise definition, and exist independently of any particular thing. Cultural context. It is in opposition to the skepticism of the sophists about the possibility for knowledge and ethical standards that Plato insisted upon the possibility of knowledge and upon the existence of absolute values. In order to do this, he had to establish the existence of an objective, universally valid reality, and this he found in the forms. Aristotle tells us that Plato accepted the Socratic method of definition, with the addition that, for a definition to be universally valid, it must be the definition of a constant reality, independent of any particular specimen of the thing defined. This reality is the form. Description of the forms in the Timaeus. The forms are the pattern or model which the maker demiurge has in view when he fashions the universe, and he makes the whole world as much like them as possible. In doing so, he introduces order into chaos. Thus, they are the supreme reality after which the world is made. Recollection. In the Phaedo, Plato suggests that the soul, when it was disembodied, knew the forms. Though it forgot everything at birth, it can still remember. Learning is essentially a process of remembering what the soul once knew. Since sensible particulars participate in or reflect the universal forms, they can remind someone of the universal with which his soul was once acquainted. Arguments for the existence of the forms. These 5 arguments are referred to by Aristotle. 1. The argument from the sciences. Knowledge and science exist. They must have objects, and therefore those objects exist. The objects cannot be particular things, we know, since these are in a perpetual state of change, whereas the objects of science must be constant. Therefore, there must be eternal and immutable realities, which we call the forms, or ideas. The best illustration is that of the mathematical sciences. No line we draw is a perfect line, or indeed a line at all, since it has 2 dimensions. No square that we draw is a perfect square. The objects of mathematics, therefore, exist in thought, not in the physical world. 2. The argument of the one over the many. Though every man in the mass of men is a man, and every animal an animal, yet in no case is the particular subject equivalent to its general predicate, since this predicate is of wider application than the subject. Therefore, there is some external existent apart from the particulars, and it is equally applicable to all the individuals concerned. That which is the unity of this multiplicity, eternal and apart from them, we call the form. 3. Argument from the knowledge of things that are no more. When we think man or horse, our thought has an object which remains unaffected by the destruction of any particular man or horse or any number of them. Therefore, something exists apart from the particulars, and this is the form. 4. The argument from relation. Things are designated by the same name or have the same predicate in one of three ways. 1. There may be merely a likeness in name. 2. They may be similar in nature. For example, Socrates and Plato are both men. 3. One may be a copy of the other. For example, a picture of a man may be called man. When we draw two lines, they are never truly equal. They are not equality itself, but an imitation of it. Therefore, there must be eternal models based on which the imitations exist. 5. The argument implying the fallacy of the third man argument. When things have the same name, yet are not identical with this name in its widest application, they have this name only because they are all in the same relation to a universal reality. For example, several men are called men because they are all in the same relation to the universal, man. Thus there must be some universals, that is, the forms. Criticisms of this theory from the Parmenides. 1. What are their forms of? Socrates wants to deny that there are forms of hair, mud, and sealing wax, but there seems to be no principled way of distinguishing the things that have forms from the things that don't. Yet, if too many things have forms, then there is little unity to the theory. 2. How can the whole form be present in different objects of sense and yet remain one? If it does not retain its unity, we have a plurality once more, and the original difficulty will only be transferred from the physical to the intelligible world. 3. If you postulate one idea to account for the fact that all big things are big, you are still left with two classes of big things, the form and the particulars, and you still have to explain why both classes of big things are big. You will then have to have a further form for both classes to participate in, and then in the same way a third form to account for the fact that the first and second form have a common predicate, big, and so on ad infinitum. This is the third man argument. 4. Socrates suggests that the forms exist in nature as patterns or models, and that things participate in them by being made like them. Parmenides answers that you will still get stuck with the third man argument, which is not what he calls it, because if particulars are like each other and have a common predicate, because they participate in a common form, then if particulars and the form are like each other also, they must both participate in a further form. This is another version of the third man argument. 5. If the forms are not of our world, they are totally separate, and there can be no connection between the two. The forms then cannot be objects of knowledge. That is, you cannot explain how, if the forms are totally separate, there is any interaction between the realm of the forms and the realm of particulars. Responses to these criticisms. 1. Plato never regarded the forms as material entities, and it is upon this misconception that the second argument above is based. 2. The third man argument, 3 and 4 above, is difficult to answer and points to the necessity of explaining clearly what is the nature of these forms, which Plato never really does. 3. The fifth objection is often called the problem of participation, and it raises the question of the relation between the forms and the phenomenal world. Plato attempts, in part, to bridge the gulf between the two worlds by means of recollection in the Meno, the Phaedo, and the Phaedrus, by intellect in the Phaedo and Republic, by eros in the Symposium and the Phaedrus, and all of these functions of the human soul. But none of these attempts fully fills out what the connection would be. There are also the metaphors of participation and imitation, but Plato never cashes them out, so they don't really provide an adequate answer. Other criticisms of the theory of forms. 1. Plato has just duplicated the real world. 2. Plato has insufficient evidence for the existence of an independent world of forms. 3. Plato fails to generate principles of systematicity or unity for the world of the forms. 4. There is a difficulty of whether or not the forms are self-predicating. Principle of unification for the forms. In the Symposium, beauty seems to be the unifying form. In the Republic, the good is clearly the unifying form. The sun analogy, for example. In the physical world, we have the sun, from which we derive light, sight, and the eye that sees. In the intelligible realm, we have the good, from which we derive truth, knowledge, and the mind that knows. It is to the good that the sun owes its existence. Furthermore, the sun is not only the cause of sight, its light makes existence possible on the physical plane. So the very existence of the knowable, and a fortiori of the physical, which derives from the knowable.